Welcome back to another edition of the Night Report podcast. I'm your host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again is my co-host, Richie O'Leary. This is part 2 of the podcast today. We're going to be talking about training camp. We're going to talk about the Scarlet Open. The basketball schedule for out of conference was just finalized and fully released. But first, once again, this podcast is presented to you by Night and Day Apparel. Beat the heat this summer with our hot one-of-a-kind products. Temperatures rising. There's no better time to refresh your wardrobe with cool and stylish summer essentials. Whether you're planning a beach getaway, a picnic at the park, or simply lounging in the yard, we've got you covered. Visit their website today and explore a full range of summer essentials from pool floats and spatulas to bathing suits and tank tops. Use our promo code Rutgers Rivals to get 10% off your purchase, and you can use that as many times as you want. Shop now and keep chopping. All right, today was the first day of training camp for the 2024 football season. Greg Schiano spoke afterwards. As you can expect, didn't really say a whole lot. I think he gave generally positive comments about a lot of areas that were specifically asked, including receiver, including the quarterback position. What stood out to you that Schiano said during his presser today?
It's tough. I would say probably the most interesting thing was him talking about the 105 rumored scholarship number that's going to be no walk-ons, basically. He kind of talked about the history of Rutgers walk-ons and how important they are. And if you look back at Rutgers' past with walk-ons, they've produced at a high rate. He mentioned Gary Brackett specifically, Sean O'Hara, Holland Pierce, for example, Christian Dremel. I mean, they have a whole wall, and he was talking about this wall they have dedicated to walk-ons that have become captains in the past. And it's happened quite a few times. So, I mean, it is sad in that aspect that walk-ons are probably going to go away. But other than that, in terms of the camp itself, he really didn't say much. I'd say the biggest news from today was probably the news we broke this morning, and that was that AJ Sarace is going to be limited in early training camp with a quote-unquote upper extremity issue. Take that for whatever it's worth. You can play the guessing game as much as you want, but sounds like he still should be good to go for the season at some point. I don't know when, but yeah, that's pretty much it. He really didn't say a whole lot.
Yeah, he was vying for the backup quarterback position. There's no doubt as to who will be the starter as long as he remains healthy in Ethan Kaliak-Manis. So given that Greg didn't really say a whole lot, I'm going to just go through the 5 things that I'm most interested in watching for the football season. We're about to have Alec join us here too. Alec, we're live here. We're just going through training camp stuff, and I knew you were at the Scarlet Open yesterday, so we're going to talk about that, but feel free to join in any of these conversations. The 5 things I'm most interested in for this training camp and watching, first, quarterback, how Ethan looks, how he's adapted to technically year 2 of the offense for Kirk Soraka, because he was really starting to make some serious strides heading into the end of that 22 season, the win at Wisconsin for the Gophers, how he started the Pinstripe Bowl until he got banged up. I want to see how the offensive line looks, given that they've brought back a bunch of starters, year 2 under Pat Flaherty. I think they'll make a jump this year. I think the third thing is the defensive line. Schiano's talked about this, that they didn't really get enough sacks and enough pressure out of rushing 4 last year. I think given that they've gotten so many guys back, I think converting those pressures into sacks will be critical this year in terms of the success overall of the team. The wide receiver depth chart, I think we've got probably 10 guys who probably would have played last year on the team, from transfers to young guys who have taken that next step to guys who are coming back from last year's team. And then the young breakouts. You have them every year. There's going to be a handful of young guys who are either way better than the recruiting rankings or in the first year of the program have made a huge jump. I'll hand it off to you, Richie. Which is the topic you're most excited to see out of training camp this year?
It's probably the most boring topic. It's offensive line. I just want to know what that right side's going to look like, because going into camp, you probably assumed it was going to be Asamoah and Shedrick Rhodes as the 2 right side guys, because the left side was already solidified last year with Felter and Pierce. Zelinskis is what he is pretty damn good. I mean, his backup last year made the NFL roster. I made an NFL roster somehow. That tells you that Zelinskis has to be pretty damn good. That right side's kind of questionable because now you have Rhodes who can kind of intertwine between right guard and right tackle. Needham's coming back. He was your starting right tackle last year. So it's going to be an interesting battle to see kind of how they get that best five out there. Whether it be, like I said, Rhodes and Asamoah, Rhodes and Needham Asamoah. Could Rhodes be a backup? Maybe I don't see it personally, but I think Rhodes is probably penciled in as a starter. I think that other spot's up for grabs, but the fact that you kind of have versatility between a lot of these guys now, you can kind of mix and match guys, and you can kind of even go past that 5 number mark and go like rotate in a 6 and a 7th, and I'm not going to say an 8th, but maybe even an 8th. So it's going to be interesting to see how that line kind of develops throughout training camp.
How about you, Alec? What position group or what storyline are you most excited to keep track of this training camp?
Mine's kind of on a similar, I guess, extension of Richie. I think it's the passing game as a whole. Richie mentioned the offensive line. I'm looking to see how Ethan kind of blends in with some of these receiver targets. And the receiver room has really some really good depth this year. I mean, you got a guy like Ian Strong who really showed some great flashes as a freshman. He might be like the odd man out because his team likes to run a lot of 3 receiver sets. So he might be the odd man out at times. Now, obviously, they're going to rotate guys in and out, but I'm really curious to see how Ethan kind of meshes with a lot of these guys and how he gets with their timing and things like that. Because I mean, I'm sure we'll see some more. I guess not just pass attempts, but more pass attempts that are, I guess, of a higher difficulty. So I'm interested to see how the receivers kind of adjust to that. I mean, you got Demir Miller who can really run anywhere and everywhere as a deep threat. You got Christian Dremel, who's the reliable guy over the middle. He's got great hands, and then you got we mentioned Ian Strong, and then Naseem Brantley as well. That's going to be an interesting battle to see, I guess, who kind of takes over that third option. Because Brantley, I mean, he didn't play last year, but the coaching staff really liked him, obviously, when they brought him in. And then Strong, obviously, like I said, showed a lot last year. So I'm really interested to see how the passing game kind of shakes out and whether we see, the 3 guys kind of settle themselves in as the top 3, or if we see a little bit of shuffling here and there. But yeah, the passing game as a whole, I'm really interested in seeing how it shakes out.
Yeah, for me, the quarterback is the easy number one. So I'm going to go with something that's a little less talked about. I just always get excited by whoever these young players are that break out. You heard a lot of buzz coming out of spring about guys like Ben Black, who might be the fastest guy on the team, both from anecdotal stuff we've heard and Reem and Beam had some segment where they were talking to players saying who's the fastest guy on the team, and almost everybody brought up Ben Black. Guys like even Sage Claudius, the safety, who we have heard kind of whispers is one of the better young players on the team, who kind of came in a very interesting route. He reclassified. He was going to go to prep school, but he decided to enroll early instead. So he's still, probably one of the younger guys on the team. Just seeing who rises up. Those first initial depth charts are always just like so jarring for most people because it's just like, who? He's going to be number 2. He's going to be the number whatever. So I'm just really excited to just kind of see some new names doing big things on this team this upcoming season. Anything else training camp wise that you guys wanted to discuss before we move on to some other topics here?
I'd say cornerbacks are kind of an interesting one. I mean, obviously Max Melton's gone. What was he, 73, 74, something like that, draft pick?
He was
overall,
the 43rd draft pick.
43rd, geez, yeah. I'm so off. Anyway, but that cornerback 3 spot's going to be really interesting because it's going to be Bo Mascow versus Al-Shadi Salam. Maybe a young guy steps up. We've heard some rave reviews about Kevin Levy already. Maybe not for this training camp, but over the past couple months. So we'll kind of see where that cornerback spot ends up going because Valena Kuhn Jr. is over there too, and he packed on. I'm looking at the roster now. He packed on 12 pounds. There's also some interesting weight changes among these guys for this roster. I'd say the most notable, who was it? Kobe Asamoah lost some weight, which I thought was interesting. Lost 12 pounds. Someone made a big jump. Jordan Thompson goes from 260 to 273, which gives him more of a Vernay Conga type build where I wouldn't be shocked if you see him kind of rotate as an inside-outside guy going forward this year. But for the most part, I mean, the tight ends got bulked up a ton, which basically tells me that I said in the last pod that these guys are going to be basically linemen. Kenny Fletcher goes from 230 to 246, and it's kind of ironic because they had trouble putting weight on Kenny Fletcher as a defensive lineman. Put him at tight end, and the kid just gained 16 pounds. I don't know what happened there, but Victor Konopka, 255 to 263. Logan Blake, 240 to 255. All 3 of them are adding nearly 10-plus pounds. It kind of tells me that these guys are going to be an extra tackle, basically, at the end of the line. And it's kind of what it's going to be like going forward, I feel like.
How about you, Alec? Anything else that you wanted to discuss about training camp before we move on?
I mean, yeah, I think I'm mirroring everything that Richie's been saying. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think if I have anything else, but not really. I mean, it's just kind of the build up to this season. It's going to be interesting to see how the team as a whole continues to grow and given the expectations, because it feels like this is the first year there's real like high aspirations and expectations for the team. And I know Schiano will say that they stay in the present and chop the moment every single day, but at certain point, I feel like it's got to kind of go into your mind that there's real expectations for this team. So seeing how they build off of that is going to be interesting to see, I guess, big picture.
Yeah, quieting that noise is going to be something that Schiano has to deal with basically for the rest of the offseason and early on in the season, because I don't see any way they don't start 2-0. Heading into the middle of September, that big tilt with Virginia Tech on the road, there's going to be a lot of hype for this team for the next few months, and how they handle that and how they stay in the moment and chop the moment, like they say, will be interesting. We've seen that a few times in the past with the basketball team, where it seems like they get ahead of themselves, read their own press clippings and might relent a little bit. We'll see if that happens with the football team, but they're going to have to remain fully focused, because it's so easy just to kind of buy into yourself on paper, and when people are saying nice things about you, it's easy to kind of relax. But they definitely have to remain on edge, for lack of a better term, all off season, heading into the season. Kind of have to keep that chip on your shoulder even when the chip doesn't exist. So,
Yeah.
let's talk a little hoops, though. We've had two big hoops-related things happen in the last 2 days. Alec, you were at the Scarlet Open yesterday. You got to see it up close and personal. What was the general vibes like at the Scarlet Open yesterday at the Top Golf in Edison?
I would definitely say they were really high. It was a great time, just like last year, and this time I actually was able to make the pod recording this year. I missed it last year, but it's fine. But yeah, it was really fun. So I was my team was paired with Emmanuel Ogbole, who, much like Cliff, is very big and strong, so he can hit the ball very far. I gotta say, not to toot my own horn, I was very impressed with some of my swings. I came in with absolutely no expectations, so I had some good swings. I believe it was Atlantic PT Health that came in first. I forget who their player was. But they absolutely dominated the competition. I remember last year our strategy was to just keep going, rotating guys in and out, hitting as many golf balls as possible. They managed to beat us at our own game. They hit like 150 more than we did, which I didn't think was possible. And we tried our best to keep going fast, but it did not work. I think we came in around like fourth or fifth. I was checking like every now and then to see where we were at. But the vibes were definitely really high. There was a lot of just talk about how this is, one of the most anticipated teams, obviously, in program history. How important it is to continue to support the team and support NIL movements like this one. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun, really. I think everyone enjoyed their time there. It seemed like all the guys were having fun too. They were all there. Yeah, I mean, just a lot of fun stuff. All the coaches were there too. It was funny. One of the parts of the event was a silent auction. And there were actually a lot of really cool stuff that was there. Like there was a signed John Morant jersey, signed Zion Williamson jersey. There was even a signed Bill Russell and signed Jerry West jersey, which I don't know. I don't know who put them up. I don't remember off the top of my head, but hey, big ups to them. Another one of them was a signed Aaron Rodgers helmet, Packers helmet, and the winning bid was Dylan Harper. So that was pretty funny. I won't say how much it was, because I don't want any speculation or anything like that. But I mean, hey, good for him. I didn't know he was. I mean, you don't have to be a Packers fan to appreciate Aaron Rodgers with the Packers. But I mean, hey, good for him.
Who would you say was the best golfer of any player or coach on the team that were participating yesterday?
It's kind of tough to say, because it's tough because I didn't see all of them all that consistently. Peichel has a pretty good swing. So does Ron. Like I said, Ogbole is just really big and strong. So like, maybe his form is pretty good as is, but he can just hit the ball so much farther. I will say PJ Hayes came over and with our team and decided to hit a few just so we could get back up in the standings. And he was really hitting it well. PJ Hayes, he's got a great form too. So from what I could see, probably PJ Hayes is definitely up there as far as I could tell. But Peichel was definitely hyping up some of the guys too. Apparently, Jermichael Davis was in his younger days was a golf champion in Chattanooga. I didn't know that.
Really?
He started saying that about a couple different people. I don't know how Pike will find this stuff out, but he was hyping up a lot of his guys, and I think they were pretty good. I mean, the scores were pretty high. Um, I think the winning score was like 25,000 or something. Is something crazy like that. So yeah, I mean, a lot of pretty good golfers, which I'm sure Peichel has said many times. We don't want our guys to be good at golf. We want them to be good at basketball. But I would say there were some solid golfers for Rutgers.
Didn't Emmanuel Ogbol use one hand last year the whole time or something
That
like
that
that?
that that was Cliff.
That was Cliff. Okay.
Yeah.
He should not be named. Sorry.
Yeah,
Cliff.
although Emmanuel did try the one-handed swing, it didn't go as well as it did for Cliff, but it was solid.
Yeah, Cliff did the old school Mario Golf Bowser swing. If anybody played that game on N64,
Yes.
just
Yeah.
the one-handed hammer. What about personality wise? Who was like the low key funniest guy that you ran into yesterday on the team?
It's tough because I mean, kind of knowing a lot of the guys like growing as a lot of them are new, so maybe they weren't at their like most comfortable yet. But Dylan Grant and Bryce Dortch seem to have like a lot of fun, just like joking around together. I mean, really, all the guys are great. Obviously, Jermichael Davis and Ace Bailey were messing around with each other too because they played in high school together. It was pretty fun. It was just a lot of fun. I think everyone was having a really fun time. But yeah, I think Dylan Grant and Bryce Dortch, the two of them, I really like their personality. Yeah, I think that was the main thing that stuck out to me.
Other basketball news that came out. Was there anything actually, Alec? Last thing on this. Is there anything that we haven't talked about the Scarlet Open wise that you wanted to touch on that we haven't already asked you?
Let's see. Trying to think of what else. I mean, it was a lot of the similar things from last year. I should have an article depending on when this goes up. The article may already be out, but from the time we're recording it, Monday, should be up tomorrow. So I'll have some more. I got some good quotes from Gio too, so you can see what he had to say. But yeah, I think overall it was just a really fun time, and I really feel like they built off of last year well. It just feels like the support and the hype around this year's team is reflected in that, and Gio said he agreed with that too. So yeah, just a great event, and we'll see what happens next year with it too.
Awesome. So basketball on the basketball front, another bit of news broke today. The out of conference schedule was finalized. Now there's going to be 11 out of conference games, and some people online were kind of crapping on the schedule. But given that this is the toughest out of conference schedule that I can remember in recent memory for Rutgers basketball, I don't know how you can really shit on this, but Jeff Goodman quote tweeted and said that's a whole lot of bye games. Let's just kind of run through it and talk about these games one at a time. First off, the season opener is going to be home against Wagner on November 6th. They play St. Peter's November 11th at home. They play Monmouth November 15th at home. Merrimack at home on November 20th. They play at Kennesaw State on November 24th. And then they go out to Vegas for the Players Era Festival, where they'll play on November 26th, 27th, and 29th against Notre Dame, Alabama, and Houston. Then they'll play at home against Seton Hall on December 14th. Neutral site game against Princeton at The Rock on December 21st. And then they'll finish their out-of-conference schedule at home versus Columbia on December 30th. Now, admittedly, this isn't the strongest out-of-conference schedule in the nation, not even close to it, but it's not a bad schedule. Like, they play two of the top 10 teams in the country, most likely in Alabama and Houston. They play another handful of good teams in Seton Hall, Notre Dame, and Princeton. There's plenty of teams that have worse schedules than this, and I don't get the flack that they're getting for this. What's your guys' overall impressions of the out-of-conference schedule?
Yeah, I don't understand Goodman other than he's kind of being a jerk off right now. There's really no other way around it. I think he is an Indiana homer, though, from what I've read on social media. So, I mean, shocking, right? But no, I mean, some of these local programs, they're always going to play like the local, close, small schools. And it doesn't mean much to Rutgers to play like a Wagner or St. Peter's or Monmouth. It means the world to some of these programs. Like you might be funding the entire athletic department of Wagner currently based on the football team playing them, based on the basketball team playing them. Plus, like getting Monmouth on the schedule is always a cool one. I wouldn't even be opposed to an away game at Monmouth personally because I love that arena. A little small, but besides the point. Kennesaw State, we obviously know the reasoning behind that. Ace Bailey, Georgia, all that stuff. And then Alabama, Notre Dame, and Houston. Alabama might be the title frontrunners right now. Okay, so there's a pretty big one. Houston's a pretty damn good team every single year, and Notre Dame's, yeah, they're meh. I mean, there's really no way around it. Seton Hall, of course, at home. Princeton, neutral site. Princeton's always decent. I know some people have questioned the neutral site aspect of it, but of course that wasn't supposed to be Princeton. That was supposed to be Arkansas. So it's not like they're not trying. They're trying to get the schedule better and better. And this is a pretty damn good one this year compared to the past 3 seasons, past 2 seasons. I thought this is actually a little better than that. So I think everyone's just not everyone. Goodman's just being a big baby.
Yeah, I don't really get. I feel like people are kind of glossing over because the way that I'm not going to blame the graphic, but the way that it's like formatted, it kind of has the Vegas, the players era kind of lumped together, and I feel like people are kind of like looking over that and then looking at all the other games because yeah, I mean that's two arguably top three teams in the country that you have in Vegas. I don't know the schedule yet, but could be back to back. And then you look at some of the other teams. I mean, Princeton's always going to be solid, even though they got Zach Martini from Princeton. Matalaco left. They're always going to be solid because they're very well coached. Seton Hall is Seton Hall. It feels like anytime there's one of those big rivalry games, it doesn't matter who is where in terms of where their season's at. All that goes out the window because that's just the nature of the rivalry games. And yeah, I mean, there's bye games there, but every team plays bye games. I mean, the Big 12 basically has made a living off of them beating up on sub 300 teams in Ken Palm and then relying on the Big 12 schedule and how good they are in order to rack up some wins for them. I mean, looking at Iowa State's schedule this year, because they did this last year, I mean, looking at their schedule, they start off with Mississippi Valley State, then they play Kansas City, and then IU Indianapolis. I didn't even know that. I think it was after it was IUPUI or whatever it used to be. And then they go to the Maui Invitational, and then they play Marquette at home. That's going to be a good game. And then they play the Cyhawk game in Iowa City against Iowa. Then the other three non-conference games they have are Jackson State, Omaha, and Morgan State. So it's like not a whole lot different. I would say Rutgers' schedules are definitely better than Iowa State's for the season. Now, I'm not just picking on Iowa State to pick on them. That's just the first team that came to mind when I thought of like the Big 12 playing a bunch of bye games. But yeah, I don't really get the hate that the schedule is getting. I mean, it's from a very small minority of people, I will say. But yeah, I think it's the best non-conference schedule that Rutgers has had in a while. And I think they need those early tune-up games before they go to Vegas just to – I mean, you only got 3 guys returning on this year's team from last year. So these guys need time to gel. And I think it's smart to start off with an easier opponent. I didn't think it was a great idea to start off with Princeton last year, but that's just how the schedule broke out. I thought they would have been much better off playing Princeton like late November, early December, but I mean, can't change that now. But yeah, I like the way the schedule is filled out, and I think it's definitely their toughest one in a long time under Peichel, and I think it's fit to follow the expectations of this team.
Totally agree. And there's a 15-day gap between the end of the Players Era Festival on November 29th and their next game, which is December 14th at home against Seton Hall. Typically, that first to second week of December is where they plug in a couple early Big Ten games. The last few years, Rutgers has had 1 or 2 Big Ten games in that little stretch. I think that's probably going to happen again this year. I can't imagine that they're going to have 15 days without a game. So look at that first week in December for 1 or 2 Big Ten opponents to get plugged in. Wouldn't surprise me if there was 2, that let's say around December 3rd and maybe December 11th, they'll have 2 games, if I had to guess. That's not off any inside information, but if I had to guess, there's going to be 1 or 2 Big Ten games in that stretch at minimum. So yeah, I like the schedule. I think it's going to be fun getting out to Vegas and doing some things that they don't typically do. And Peichel has said this, and I agree with it. The Big Ten plays a 20-game in conference schedule. A lot of conferences play 18 games. Some even play 16. So, we're playing 2 more, for the most part, Q2 opponents than most people in their conference schedule alone. So I don't see the reason you have to blow out your out-of-conference schedule. I think conference schedules should count equally in terms of game by game, as opposed to just adding one extra, Goliath on your schedule to make it seem like your schedule's better overall. But
I mean, not to mention the conference got a lot better, adding Oregon and UCLA. Like USC's not a pushover either. Washington might be, but I also think, like Alec mentioned, that graphic it's a little rough for the sole fact that it says Notre Dame, Alabama, Houston. I feel like people are just misconstruing it, saying like, oh, they're going to play one of those three. They're playing all three. Like
Yep.
all three of those guys are back. Well, not back to back to back because you get that day off, but 1, 2, 3 in a row. Like these are very good teams. So,
Yeah,
I don't
definitely. So that's all I got. Is there anything else you guys wanted to hit on before we head out of here?
I hate to keep hating on this graphic, but like I just realized Jeremiah Williams is upside down on the top of the graphic.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna pull it up real quick. It's an interesting. You
Oh
probably
yeah,
could
I'm
have
seeing
just
that now too.
probably could have just cropped this part here, but just kept it here. But I mean, all right, hey, interesting design choice.
It's edgy.
That's one way to put it.
All right, guys. Well, we want to thank each and every one of you for listening once again. We broke this into 2 parts today to kind of segment out the topics, but we'll be probably in your feed later this week as training camp continues on. I'm sure more news will break. Maybe we'll get more commitments. Who knows? Given how unpredictable these commitments have been, but we appreciate you listening. For me and Richie and Alec, once again, this has been another edition of the Knit Report podcast. Signing off.